Welcome, everybody, for another exciting episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies. My name is John, and this week I'm joined by
Dan,
Jack,
Jamie, and special guest.
Hi, guys. It's Jake.
Jake. Did you have a podcast before, Jake?
maybe still, kind of, sort of, in hiatus or something.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there.
It still exists, as far as I know.
Still on the iTunes.
is it? What's a podcast?
They still take my money every month, so I assume it's there.
I'm trying to figure out how I'm the only. So everyone always feels left out because they don't play Ultramarines. This week I feel left out because I'm the only person that my name doesn't start with J.
We'll give you an honorary J name. We just want
I'm not sure I want that, but we might not have a choice.
Dan, what if you just are Dan with a silent J at the front?
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool. I can dig that.
So to get us kicked off here, I think we'll go ahead and start with hobby progress. I went through and got all of the Ultramarines, Heavy Bolter, Javelin Passengers decaled last podcast while we were recording. This week I managed to get them sealed. I did the chipping on them with the sponge. I got the heavy weapons painted and all the metals painted. Tomorrow I look forward to sealing them so that I can start oil washes and move them along so that I can move forward to Warzone Houston, which is next Saturday, the 17th, or 16th, 17th, and 18th in beautiful Houston, Texas. I had a bit of a sidetrack there, though, as my Age of Darkness rulebook decided to, I believe, as Duncan would say, yeet itself off of the shelf and plunge 6 feet onto my jet bikes and explode them. I had 6 jet bikes exploded to many pieces. A couple of them more worse for wear than others. One of them bent so badly I had to drill out the flight stand and find a new one. But I got those all I got everybody reassembled. I got everything put back together. Lucky for me, the ones that had the most conversions were somehow missed, and the javelins were missed. So everything seems to be a little bit not worse for wear, I guess you could say, fully repaired and back to normal. I'll have
The Emperor protects.
Exactly. Gulliman watched out for me.
John, you just did too much hobby progress. That was the problem. You went over your allotment for hobby, and so you had to go backwards a little bit.
I had to double back.
Redoing hobby is always the worst part of hobby.
Yeah. The other thing I did, since we sometimes count purchases, my wife was nice enough to go to Michael's the other day. It's kind of a chain DIY store and hobby store, and they had a lot of their necklace making stuff on clearance. And so I'm holding up here for the chat 11 yards or 10 meters of chain, which is exactly the size of tank chain or stuff like that you might find sculpted on a lot of Games Workshop models. This was clearance down from $10 to $3. And my wife picked that up for me yesterday. Today, I went back and cleaned them out. I've got every bit of chain that I could get my hands on. So I'm going to have a bunch of different chain for Necromunda and Heresy terrain going forward. I look forward to being able to use that at just adding on to stuff. And that way I don't have to paint these up. They're already pre-weathered. This one is nickel colored. So it's got the nice kind of a little bit of patina in there already. I would recommend, if anybody is looking for things to add on to their hobby and then things to enhance themselves with, always check out clearance racks for these DIY stores and things like that. Sometimes you'll surprise yourself with what little tools you can find there. I know I found a weathering supplies there before where you've got different makeup brushes and things like that can work really well. The other not GW purchase I made was I found some Plano cases on Amazon, and y'all hear rattling here. These Plano cases, if you put side by side, they're the width and height of a battle foam tray. And so I have managed to fill one of them with all of the jet bike heavy weapons and another one with all the Predator heavy weapons. So I will post a link to those in the Accountability Buddies Facebook group, so that way people can track those down. It's a 4-pack for $20, and you get enough storage in there. One of them I'm storing every javelin gun, so it's all 9 missile launchers, all 9 las cannons. Another one's all 40 heavy bolters, multi-meltas, plasma cannons, Volkites, and another one is all the upper torsos that I swap between attack bikes and javelins and other heavy weapons teams. So really a nice way to keep everything organized. They're the same Plano cases that everyone is used to, where you can slot in and out the different dividers and trays, and that way you can kind of customize how deep they go. So
yeah, I was thinking to pick some up. I saw you post that, and it was in the middle of my canoe trip, but I like it because we talked about traveling and hobby, and it'd be great because you can snip bits into those and store the bits. And then if you're going to a con or something where you're taking your battle foam, and I've got the topper that's, just a couple of layers you can take, and you could just throw those Plano cases in there with your magnet rack or something, and then you could be building and putting it in the rack and have all the bits in there. I thought that was a really good idea, not just for the magnetized bits, but just store your bits in it and then be able to take them with you to a con or something where you're taking miniatures. So I thought it was a neat idea.
I usually end up having just like a little bit of room left on the top of my battle foam bags. So if you could find those like really thin, it would also be good for like a hobby emergency kit, like glues and tools and some magnets or a pen vise or something like that, so you can fix stuff.
Depending on how many magnets. Oh, go ahead.
The other thing I found with these is if you've got the older 1520s with the big pockets on the side that
I do
like the size of submarine sandwich. It was such an odd pocket because it's like 3 feet long or something that you can't really get anything in there.
It's great for big apocalypse templates. So
that's what I was about to say. You could throw these in the front of the big pocket, and then apocalypse template can go behind it to kind of keep it rigid. I've done that with the predator weapons I used before, but this is the first time I've bought these things in bulk.
Cool.
And that's all me. I will pass it on to Jake.
Oh shit. Let's see. So I think what I've been working on ever since I got back from Music City Heresy, it was kind of one of those, that was my first set of games that I'd got to play. So it's hard for my brain. Like I can't just look at things and it makes sense. I have to like see it play out and then it makes sense. So I had to play a bunch of games and then figure out, okay, now I kind of, rules are making sense, everything else. So I think I've got 2 3,000 point armies, one for my Salamanders, one for my Space Wolves. The biggest thing that was a shift for me was my Space Wolves were a predominantly drop pod or Charybdis and Ambulus and all that fun stuff, come from the sky, punch things in the face. And I think I'm shifting more to just boots on the ground now after playing a few games. So right now I'm in the process of assembling 20 Gray Slayers. And I've got about 6 of them done. And then I'm going to throw 10 of the Death Sworn in there as well. And I just actually got all 10 of them put together today. But really right now, my stuff is all trimming, scraping off mold lines, gluing stuff together, trying to just get all my models together. So that way I can then start the paint process. But that's pretty much been, I almost started on my Spartan, on the plastic Spartan tonight, but I'll probably save that for tomorrow. I'm really interested to get into that kit because I've got a oh god, what's the name of the bunch that makes all the tracks that everybody buys? Yeah, those guys. I've got a set of their, I forget what the name of the tracks are, but it's the angry sounding ones with all the pokey bits on it. So I'm going to try and see if those will go on the plastic Spartan, but we shall see. Well, that's most of what I've got right now is just gluing resin to resin and scraping mold lines.
All right. Well, I guess I'll jump in next. So I had a not very productive week, but I did been working on first tactical unit, blacking in all the base colors, got the sergeant really base colored, working through the guys, and I took my custom Praetor and I put the gold on the wings just because it was sitting there with big white wings and I want the Praetor to have gold wings on it. So just working on that. I did get in my resin order of Dawnbreakers and Angel's Tears. I did not get, unfortunately, the order got messed up, so I didn't get my the jump pack Incantus Contemptor in, so I'm gonna have to get that ordered separate. But I did get a Blood Angels Leviathan body, so I guess I could put the Leviathan in its place for now on my list until I get one in, if I get enough stuff built to start getting games in. Also been texting back and forth and set up, I may have mentioned it last week, but there's a guy whose kid's in my son's Boy Scout troop who's never war gamed, but has been listening to our podcast and is intrigued, is interested in getting into it, started reading the black books or listening to the black books. And so in 2 weeks, I'm going to have him over and do a demo game. So I'll be putting together lists with the Ultramarines and Word Bearers to let him pick a side and throw some dice and hopefully get a new heresy buddy local. So that's what I got. So I got move on to Jamie.
So this week I've been working on what else? More rhinos. I finished up 2 just before we started recording tonight. And I've actually had to do some airbrush maintenance, which is the first time I've had to do that in a long time. Usually keep up on that pretty well. And I had to get some what do you call it? I ordered some more paints. It seems like everybody kind of is running out of scale 75 paints at the same time for some reason. Don't know why, but we just are. And mostly for scale 75 stuff, I really only use it for like metallics. So usually it's not for me, at least with the army I'm working on right now, it's used pretty sparingly. So like I was kind of surprised. There's a store here locally that carries it. And I went up there and they were out of basically the metallics that I was normally used. So yeah, that's that. And then I guess next what I'm going to start working on is with all the sabers that I've built and a couple more of the rhinos that I've built, I'm just going to keep working up painting. And then I've got I also have a tactical squad, Mark III tactical squad, and a Mark IV, unfortunately, las cannon heavy weapon team that I've started actually painting. I started working on those a little bit too, doing just like the detail work. That's pretty much it.
If you have any trouble tracking down scale 75 paints, I live near the US distribution hub, so I can drive down there. It's like a 20.
Well, I mean, like everybody, like I know Jacob, he ran out of something, and like I offered to go here locally and pick up some up for him. It's just like when I went to get the specific colors that I was looking for, they were out. Okay. It's not that I can't get them locally. It's just like I guess there was a run on what is it, aged bronze or aged metal or something like that.
Huh.
I use it a lot on my treads just to help weather them out.
I will say I love the matte black.
Yeah.
It's
their paints usually are really pigment saturated. So I mean, like I've never had problems with them. And I know like y'all are gonna gasp. I don't like dropper bottle paints, so I have like I have a little palette that I use for that stuff. Or if I'm gonna airbrush with them, I'm just not a big, it's not a big dropper bottle fan. But that's just me. I know it's heretical. It's me saying that, but
I'll die on that hill with you.
I see benefits and detriments to all the styles of paint. There's not a perfect one.
No, there's not. I mean, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I can't believe you didn't switch over everything to dropper bottles. So I'm just like, it's what I can get locally easily. And until, we've had so many stores open and close, it's hard to, know what you're going to be able to get consistently, except for me, like everybody carries GW paint. So like, it's easy for me to get locally.
I don't know if we've talked about this before, but one of the things I'm trying to do is, you start painting and you pick out your colors and you set an army list and army colors, and then you buy every color there is in the world and have every paint there is. And now that I've been through quite a few classes, and really what I was starting to lean this way, and I may have talked about this before, but when I went to Adepticon, I did a class with Miles from Little Legends. And one of the things we did is we took white, yellow, red, and blue and mixed it together to match your skin. And I was able to match primary colors to a pretty near exact skin tone for my skin. And that exercise gave me a lot of confidence to say, I'm just going to use a lot of these paints up on whatever miniatures I can, and then not replace them and work my way down to a smaller core set of paints and be able to just realize that I can do a lot of mixing and blending and get good looking things without having every freaking paint in the universe on my shelf. So, but anyway, it looks like Jack, I think you're the one left.
Big things that I've done this week has been organizing stuff still, because the last project left everything in a disaster. So yes, that's all I get, and I have no voice, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We're good, dude. We don't want you to hurt yourself trying to podcast.
Podcast is life.
Show must go on.
Jack, I really need you to go into about 30 minutes worth of detail on your organization. Would be really what I'm ready for right now.
Okay, so
yeah,
here's everything that's happened. Somehow I managed to break my first hobby lamp that I had above my table because I have this bright old lamp above my table because I'm old and blind. So I had to replace that. That caused me to have to move everything that was already in the way from working in Ultramarines for Music City Heresy. So then I was like, well, let me go through my paints and see what I actually used for this project and didn't use for this project. And then I realized I'm the exact opposite of Dan, and every single color I need a specific brand and like size bottle for that type of paint. So I literally, no joke, have for the Ultramarines, this looking at it right now, probably 35 different types of paint sitting on my desk right now that I used on majority of the models because I'm a lunatic.
There you go.
And then I went through that. And then when I needed to clear up my little travel dolly thing for Music City Heresy, so everything I had staged on that went on to another dolly that I have sitting in the garage. And so that was a disaster. So I had to organize that. And at some point, I got a second Rabute Gilliman. I don't know where he came from. So I'm now I have him sitting on my table like, oh, I can customize him now because I'm a lunatic.
Attaboy.
Sounds like you're getting more confident in your abilities as well. So lunatic or not, you are doing a lot better.
Thank you, sir.
You're just
All right,
a good company.
So at that, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is Heresy Thursday. They announced another book, and we're all waging bets on whether we'll actually see this book in our hands before the Mechanicum book in the United States. But that aside, they announced the Custodes, Solar Ox, and Assassins book. So let's see, there was a rule teaser, for the Custodes, right? The Nemesis rule.
Yeah, so that's an interesting rule while we're looking at that. It basically allows you, a Nemesis unit is any unit that is an enemy unit that fulfills at least one of the following condition. The unit includes one or more models with at least one of the following unit types or subtypes: Primarch, Dreadnought, Monster, Reinforced, Bombard, Demon, Corrupted, Super Heavy, Unique, or Knight. Option 1. Option 2 is the majority of the models in the unit have a value of 5 or more in any of the following characteristics: weapon skill, ballistic skill, wounds, or initiative. And the third option is the unit includes the enemy warlord. So basically, you're going to be able to nominate, with this Nemesis rule, nominate enemy elites or monsters or whatever you want to call it, to go down and hunt. And you get, what is the bonus, Dan?
+1 attacks and +1 charge rolls. And unless it's a Primarch, never need higher than a 4+ to score a hit.
Oof. Yeah, that's...
And
so
it
the hope
doesn't
is
say,
that you can only
say melee hit either.
Yeah, the hope is that you are limited to this, like maybe 1 or 2 Nemesis declarations a turn, or maybe only certain custode ranks can declare these things. Hopefully, it's not just la-di-da-di everybody, but we'll have to see. There's not really a lot more about custodes that much in this document. There's some information about tertios when it comes to Solar Ox. So basically, it's bringing back some of the functionality that you saw with the old guard decks. So if a unit is declared as a tertio, if a reaction is declared for that unit, then all units from the same tertio that are within 3 inches of the reacting unit may also make the move or shooting reaction. This cannot make further reactions in the same phase. So you're still limited to, each unit can only do 1 reaction per phase, but it's a good way to chain reaction together, which is really close to kind of what we've seen before with 1, the Ultramarine special rule, special reaction, and 2, the Mechanicum special reaction that they got access to that allows anyone that can see the reacting unit to shoot. But this one is limited by proximity to the first reactor.
It makes me wonder about augury scanners and 1 unit with an augury scanner chaining everybody together.
Don't you have to be within the 3 inches of the unit with the augury scanner, though?
Yeah, so the guy that starts the chain could be in the middle of like a deployment blob.
Yeah, it's kind of just a big bubble at that point. So
The only thing I think was it you, John? We were talking about this earlier. It like makes it right for pie plates from artillery.
Yeah, if you're having to keep your units within 3 inches of each other, you're definitely going to be taking a lot more plates to the face, which is not something terrible because pie plates aren't exactly great now.
Right.
But we're still looking at that through the lens of a Space Marine. If you're looking at that through the lens of a auxiliary or militia player, whichever this ends up going for, they're going to be hurting a lot. The other confirmation we got is that there's 7 different assassin clades,
Assassins, yeah.
which we know of. Obviously, we know the 4 original, and then we got the Vanus added.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get the other Venenums and other ones that were mentioned in the Nemesis book.
Yeah.
And then the assassins themselves got a super reaction called Tactical Displacement. This is a shooting reaction. Whenever an enemy unit targets a unit that is composed entirely of assassins, the reacting unit may immediately move a distance in inches up to twice the majority initiative characteristics. This move may be made in any direction and ignores all terrain and anything that would modify their distance, such as impassable terrain. So it allows the unit to move across impassable terrain too, as long as the final position of the model is at least 1 inch away from any enemy model and not inside of impassable terrain. You're fine. And then at the end of the movement, then the reacting player can decide to shoot, or the player that triggered the reaction can decide to shoot. And if you happen to get out of range, so be it. Gets hot, not apply.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with kind of the Alpha Legion displacer fields that they always talk about in the books a little bit in my mind. Similar kind of technology thing on the table.
Yeah, I mean, assassins have always been if someone shoots at them, they book it. There's been a lot of, I was watching there's a good YouTube channel I'll have to find later that goes through Vrax and tells it like it's an ancient history channel, like a war channel. It shows the different maneuvers. And then there's like this assassin that goes in, tries to shoot the Cardinal. He manages to trip his displacer fields. The Cardinal like poofs out. And then the assassin has to try to get out of town and he gets caught. But yeah, it takes like something like 30 men to just tie down the assassin before you can get away.
I missed this little bit at the end in my read through before, but it says an administrative error caused by a shadowy figure hacking the mainframe at Warhammer Community Towers caused this previously to read 8. There have obviously only ever been 7 clades, and any scintilla of a suggestion of the contrary is heresy to the most. So apparently they had a typo, and they fixed the typo in their post.
Which is funny that these interns that wrote this article could fix that, but the interns that wrote some of the other articles where they mix up Legion numbers or even authors that mix up Legion numbers, they don't get the same type of
was that mixed up in the book and the audio version, or was that just a reading in the audio version thing?
It's in both. So the Echoes of Eternity actually mentions the 4th Primarch over and over when it's talking about Dorn, when in reality that's Perturabo. So it's kind of funny, ironically, that the 2 people that would hate to be called each other, those guys get mixed up.
Interesting. All right. Well, was there anything else before we jump into our featured topic of the evening and the reason for Jake being our special guest?
We had mentioned a couple weeks ago that there was an issue with some of the Aeronautica Imperialis heresy release. And as I open this box, I will say that has been fixed. Games Workshop has managed to restock all of the Aeronautica stuff. If you got as part of the secondary order wave, your stuff should be arriving soon. And then they've turned off all of the limited release buttons on the Aeronautica heresy stuff. So if you were hoping that you didn't have to pay scalpers $55 a card set for a $12 card set, do not worry any longer. Those things are now, as far as we know, back in normal production.
You can just do that for Battlefleet Gothic, Battlefleet Gothic instead, or not Battlefleet Gothic, Blackstone Fortress cards.
Yeah, so. Blackstone Fortresses, you still got to pay the scalpers. Heresy tokens, you still got to pay the scalpers. Many other things that you still got to pay scalpers for, but Aeronautica, they fixed.
Nice. All right then, cool. Well, in that case, we will move on to our deep dive into the Salamanders. So since none of us play Salamanders or are experts, we kind of brought Jake in. So I guess I don't know. You want to start with why Salamanders appeal to you, and why you paint green with all kinds of flames on it, and you think that's a cool thing to do?
Well, first, I think we need to address, I think we are stretching the word expert to the extreme limits of what that word can be defining. Now, I can tell you why I play Salamanders. It's because flames are awesome and green's my favorite color. So if for no other reason, I mean, I remember being a kid, and I remember when the Armageddon book, isn't that right? Armageddon book? Yeah, that came out back in 3rd edition, and kind of seeing those models. And it was one of those at the time. I mean, I'd played if it wears power armor, I've played it just about. But I always had I got in the game back in '01, and I always wanted a salamander. Like, it was always in the back of my head. And back in 5th edition, I almost started a Salamanders army, and I ordered a whole bunch of. I found a deal on eBay and ordered like 40 TAC Marines and ordered all the extra stuff and bought a whole bunch of, like, at that time, Chapter House was kind of like the only place to get some like specific chapter stuff, shoulder pads, hammers, shields, things like that. And I ordered all this stuff, and my PayPal just moved, and it was set up to go to my apartment, apparently, even though all the other, thanks PayPal, but even if you change all your addresses everywhere else, if your address on your PayPal is different, it'll ship it there. So I basically bought an entire Salamanders army that I never got. And when I got into Heresy at the very beginning, I knew, for those of y'all that don't know, I'm a big Space Wolf guy too. And that's probably kind of my like where my absolute loyalty lies. But when I got into Heresy, it was still early enough to where the Space Wolves didn't exist yet. And so I kind of took it as, you know what, I've wanted to paint these Salamanders. I've wanted to have a Salamanders army. I wanted to paint green. I'm gonna just do it, and then that gives me time. I got something to play with until my Space Wolves come along. But honestly, you start getting into the Salamanders lore, and it's really cool stuff. Real short. For those that don't know, they started out, and they've always been extremely, the word pragmatism. That's kind of the wet leopard growl of Salamanders is pragmatic. They're not afraid to sacrifice themselves. They're not, they're part of the Treeful, which is the 3 legions that are kind of unique and set apart and different, and kind of some of the rumors or the lore, whatever you want to call it, says that they are the humanity of the Emperor, right? Like they value human lives and Astartes' life, where other legions, they don't care. It's probably the easiest way to sum it up. A lot of legions, what matters is that you get to your destination. Where the Salamanders, it's how you get there. So they're gonna attempt to save human lives. They're gonna attempt to not just destroy everything. They still have a tie to their humanity, and it goes all the way back to their kind of legion setup and orientation, where when they're not cruising around in their battle cruisers, blowing people up and burning people with flamers, they're living amongst the people on Nocturne in their cities. So they have a really strong tie to humanity. They value human life. They are like the ultimate quote unquote good guys in the game. And all of those things, it's the very prototypical hero, right? It's kind of like you go back to the old stories where there's not we don't want flaws. We don't want anti-heroes. We don't want, we're not talking about the Punisher. We're talking about like OG Superman, right? And that's what they are to me. And honestly, that's what really draws me to them.
Well, and as opposed to the Ultramarines, who kind of are the same, except the Ultramarines want to rule over everybody, right? Everything with Ultramarines is, they want to be the governors and the heads of state and the rulers, and the Salamanders just want to be dudes and protect the people. So yeah, that's really cool. I don't know. I'd say of all the loyalist legions, I consider probably the Salamanders to be the most good guys. Is the way I look at it and would put it. It's kind of summing up what you're saying. So I definitely see where you're coming from and what how that would appeal. I started a green army right around the same time you did, but my green army is the Manus Warriors. So that was that was before the Badab book. So I have the old, there was one color plate from the Rogue Trader books, right? And it had a green guy and a desert camo guy, and that was the time I started my green Space Marine army. But I went green with yellow and red trim, but just a little more obscure. So at the time, anyway. So yeah, cool. So we want to jump in and start quickly going through rules, and so we want to start with what's their special rule that they get for everybody.
So they got the Blood of Fire, which is pretty awesome. And just talking kind of coming from 1.0 to 2.0, they brought a lot of the things that were in 1.0, a lot of things that made Salamanders are represented here. But what they get is what everybody should be used to, which is when they get shot at by a flamer, a melter, anything burny, you're reducing that roll by 1. And what's cool about that is it's not a reduction of strength. It's not which I think it was a reduction of strength in the last one. I think it was -1 strength, where now it's a reduction to the roll. So if it's a strength 10 flamer, it's going to a 3, which is kind of neat. But it does still double you out if you're not careful. But the other big part about this that we didn't have before is that if you've got more than 1 wound, your special units, any of your Terminators, any of your Dreadnoughts, they get it will not die 6+. So it really kind of adds to that hardy constitution that the Salamanders are known for, and makes them a lot harder to get all the way gone. And they got rid of the -1 to movement. Woo!
Very cool. Let's see, and they also get, like all the legions, they get an advanced reaction, right? So
yeah, and it's pretty dang cool. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, mostly because the games I was playing, I was lucky to even know what a reaction was, much less what an advanced reaction is. But it kind of goes into, it's called Duty of Sacrifice, and it really goes into kind of what we were talking about, where they go kind of Super Saiyan to make their stand and die to a man. And so basically you get that advanced reaction. They get a +1 of their weapon skill, strength, and attack for that assault phase. It's in the assault phase. And when it's over, you roll a bunch of dice, and for every 6 you roll, somebody dies. So it's kind of basically a last stand reaction, where I haven't had a chance to use it yet. To me, that's going to be something like, a unit that's been shot at, maybe a smaller unit that's getting assaulted, or like maybe even TAC Marines or something. I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot of benefit. Maybe you will. When you start talking about adding attacks, I'm just thinking like Fire Drakes or something like that. I think you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck, kind of out of some units where you're like, man, these guys are going to get mopped up, but maybe I can get a couple wounds in there, do some damage from something that probably shouldn't be doing damage. But it's a really cool kind of flavorful advanced reaction that I think will have some benefits.
yeah, it seems like the kind of thing like you really need to hold this objective this turn, so you're gonna trigger it right when someone charges you or something like that. Yeah, so cool. And then as all the legions, they come with 3 separate warlord traits. Interestingly enough, for all we talk about being good guys, one of them is a traitor only, which, as we know, there's loyalists and traitors in every legion. But so what stands out on these, or which one?
I'll tell you honestly, I think the first one, I think Weight of Duty is the one that I'm probably going to be running with the most, just because I think it has the most benefits in my mind. I mean, you're talking about, you take it and you get +1 to your strength when you're locked in combat with models that have fear, and then you also gain hatred traitors while the warlord's part of that unit. So basically, you pick a unit that he's going to go in, and that unit just kind of gets an instant buff, almost like you kind of have a free chaplain running around in that unit. And this is honestly one of the things that I like about 2.0 versus 1.0. I've always hated, especially go back to like maybe 5th edition 40K, and where we used special characters to get special rules, or where we got, for example, in Heresy 1.0, you used, and we'll get into this a little bit later, I'm sure, but where you go and you take a Rite of War, and you have to take that Rite of War to get what I would consider rules and play styles that every version of that army should have anyway, but you're stuck playing a Rite of War in order to get those rules. And that always kind of pissed me off, to be honest, because it's like, what if I don't want to take that Rite of War, but then I lose all these benefits? Or, for example, Space Wolves, one of the things they had with their Grey Slayers was hey, let's be able to run and charge, right? So to me, it was like, well, how come you lose that ability as soon as you become a Praetor, or as soon as you become anything else, a veteran? I prefer, let's give the units the rules and then use what we've done in this book. Seems like the Rite of Wars are a lot more now about army composition as opposed to rule granting, which I think I'm okay with, because that's kind of what I'm saying here. This Weight of Duty gives you the rules and some of the specific drawbacks, right? So it says, if you take this, you get somebody that hates traitors, you get somebody that gets a +1 to their strength in that unit, the whole unit does. But then you can't take, the things that we used to not be able to take. destroyer squads, more attacks, that kind of stuff, to kind of add that flavor through these rules that can go in any army, as opposed to tagging them into like Covenant of Fire, for example, in the previous set of rules. So to me, that's kind of what I would go with, just because I feel like getting that, take it in my brain. You got a Praetor, you got a whole bunch of Fire Drakes, and now they have Hatred, which I don't know that they need a whole lot, because Fire Drakes kind of get that built in anyway. But I think that's probably what I'm going to be running. The Promethean Wheel is pretty good, pretty cool too. It helps you with fear rules. And then the Redemption of Flames, which is the Traitor version, to me it seems kind of bland, but also I don't know that you're going to see a whole lot of Traitor Salamanders anyway. Sure. But it just kind of gives you +1 to wound for all armor pin rolls with flames or Volkite weapons.
The Traitor Salamanders are going to be right on playing the Loyalist Word Bearers, right?
Exactly. And I don't know if this is common for everybody else, but it also seems like all of them give you an additional reaction.
Yeah.
Ability to do an additional reaction.
Yeah. I have to say, I didn't do a lot of prep reading ahead of this, but when I did read these, I was surprised to see the unit restrictions built into the Warlord traits, because I don't know. Well, definitely in what we've previewed, we've not come across that. And I don't know if that's unique to Salamanders or there may be some other ones, but it's definitely not across the board. But it is an interesting, like you say, way that you build it in to the Warlord trait, as opposed to building it into army composition restrictions or Rite of Wars or something along those lines. So, yeah. And, it's the weighted duty and Promethean Will are different benefits with the same restrictions for the Loyalists. So that's kind of interesting and flavorful and works out pretty good that way. Yeah. So very cool. So with that, talking about Rites of War. So Covenant of Fire, I've heard that name somewhere before. Anyway, they get there's two Rites of War. So what's the good and bad of your Rites of War we get here?
So a Covenant of Fire shouldn't be a whole lot different to anybody that's played Salamanders before, except for, like I said, they took out some of the special rules. For example, we got a 5-up invul save on our vehicles from flamey stuff. We used to get moved through cover, those are kind of things like I wish I still had some of those things, but I'm kind of glad that they're not doing that through Rite of War, because it's like, well, if I have moved through cover in Covenant of Fire, if I don't run Covenant of Fire, why wouldn't I have Rite of War? So, or have moved through cover. But the main thing it does is that it moves things around. So you're getting your Pyroclast squads and your Legion tactical support squads, with the caveat that you have to run, which we haven't got to yet, but we shall, the Dragon's Breath Flamers, which is our new word for saying +1 strength to your flamers, which is fine. I Dragon's Breath's cool with me, and it gives them line, which is big, and it also lets you take your Predator squadrons with Dragon's Breath cannons and Dragon's Breath heavy flamers as non-compulsory troop choices as well. So really what it's trying to do is cram as many things that are toting Dragon's Breath flamers into your troop choices as you can, which used to wasn't as good, but I think that with the increases to your Pyroclasts, I think that they got a lot better. And so I was planning on running Covenant of Fire anyway, but I'm definitely building lists now kind of centered around that, which your limitations are always going to be kind of what are typical for Salamanders. Reduction of deep strike, no destroyer squads, no more tats, that kind of stuff. And you have to take a champion. So most of it's the same as it used to be, as far as putting things in the right place. And I think it's going to be super awesome, because I think that Pyroclasts, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big tactical squad fan. I don't run any of my Space Wolves because I have Grey Stalkers and Grey Slayers. And I literally took 2 squads in every Salamanders unit army that I've ever played, only because I'm required to. So the fact that I can break some bolters off, glue some flamers on, and now have guys rolling around with strength 5 flamers that do D6 wall of flame as my troop choices, along with Pyroclast, I'm gonna be doing that, because flamers in other people's faces is the best.
Yeah,
so
I have to take a champion, twist my arm, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those. Yeah, make me take a champion. Okay, fine.
I guess that, depending on if you like other consoles, maybe it limits you a little bit there, but not champions are never bad, right?
I don't think so. The other one's the Awakening Fire, which it. I'll be honest, I didn't play it in the first go round, and I don't know that I'm going to play it in the next go round, because what it does is it kind of opens up the Fury of the Salamander psychic discipline and kind of builds around that. But I'll be honest, and we can go through them a little bit, but I'm not super impressed. I need somebody, this comes down to just me being dumb and not being able to read words on page. It makes sense to me. I need somebody to do it to me, and then I'll understand whether it's good or bad. But I feel like the main issues with the psychic powers, we've got one that is, hey, everything becomes difficult and dangerous terrain, and anything that's dangerous or that's difficult terrain already becomes dangerous terrain. But the problem is you can't move when you do it. So then I feel like you got a guy standing in the middle of the board going, Moses, splitting the Red Sea there, but he's stuck there standing in the middle of the board and can't move. And the other one is a template strength 7 AP4 weapon with Deflagrate. And like I said, looking at it on the page, I don't see it. I'm sure somebody will prove me wrong, and I'll show up to a table with a bunch of, Trader, Awakening Fire, Salamanders, and they'll just blow me off the table with it. But
I mean, the fear, right? You can give all your units fear, and you can you ignore modifiers to leadership and making pinning tests, right? I mean, they could just kind of stack a bunch of stuff together, and you have to take a chaplain. I don't know. I don't think it's probably the worst right out there, but I think it's very specialized. You're going to have to be building a full list around trying to really build those skills and abilities and synergies all together, and really focusing on that kind of thing and running it that way to make it work, as opposed to the other one. But yeah, I definitely, the Covenant of Fire one, being able to take flamer dudes and give them line, right? That's one of the things we talk about a lot, is how important line is or isn't. But think of that tactical support squad with line sitting on the objective the last turn, and then you can throw someone charges them and you throw that special reaction on them, or a bunch of pyroclasts. I mean, that stuff all works together and adds together and gives you some synergies and cool things on the table, right?
Yeah, so, like I said, to me, it's like, for me, the obvious choice is Covenant of Fire. I know that somebody that's a lot smarter than me is going to play Awakening Fire and probably do really well with it, and sounds great. But I think Awakening Fire, you're going to be building lists specific for that, which I guess I'm doing with Covenant of Fire as well. But I feel like I can kind of bounce in and out of Covenant of Fire a little bit better than if I feel like I'm building something very specific for Awakening Fire.
Sure. It might be, one of the things that sticks out of my head is it might be an interesting one to play in a ZM type list, right? Where you're messing around with the leadership stuff. I mean, you got to have a psyker and a chaplain in there, but using all the leadership in smaller points games might be a place where that kind of fits in a good place. Although having a whole bunch of flamers in a ZM game isn't a bad thing ever either, right? So
no, and honestly, now that you say that, go ahead, John.
I was thinking they'd be good allies for either Night Lords or Word Bearers or anyone that likes leadership shenanigans as well.
Oh yeah,
they don't have to be traitor or loyalist. It depends on which way you want to take that. But you could also do like a Crusade era list with that as well if we get the Oz 30K stuff coming back out.
Yeah, I see that too.
Yeah, and I think that Salamander's Fury does probably have some more legs in a ZM situation. You stick him up there, so it's 18 inches. You pass a psychic check. Every enemy unit within 18 inches is moving. Only enemies. Everything's difficult terrain. Difficult terrain is dangerous terrain. So you put him in the middle of a ZM board, and you can really slow down an enemy with that. So maybe there is some benefits. There is some synergy there you could pull off.
Yeah, or if your buddy's always playing Blood Angels Dawn of Revelations against you and jump and all the jump pad guys down, where you're making death saves when you're running in a dangerous terrain all the time. That's very specific, right? So
sure.
So then we move on to the armory, right? So you already talked about basically you can exchange heavy bolters for Dragon's Breath heavy flamers, twin linked heavy bolters for twin linked heavy flamers, and any model with the character unit subtype in a Salamanders can add Mastercrafted rule to a weapon that does not already have it for 10 points. Dragon's Breath weapon. So the pistol flamer is strength 4, pistol 1, Dragon's Breath. The regular Dragon's Breath is strength 5, assault 1, Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath heavy flamer is template 6, assault 1, Dragon's Breath. I'm not sure how does a twin length flamer work. I haven't even thought about that in the new edition.
Should still be rerolling wounds, I think, unless they've changed it.
Oh, okay. And then
that's what it used to be.
Dragon's Breath cannon, right? 7. And 7's a torrent 18 inches as well, right? So the cannon is pretty beefy.
Yeah, cannon don't suck.
And then, right, as you already mentioned, they all get a D6 wall of death instead of D3. That doesn't suck. Let's see. Independent characters that do not have unique subtype may take Dragon Scale Storm Shield for 15 points. Cataphractor Tartaros may exchange a Combi Bolter for a Storm Shield for 10. Provides a 5+ invuln or increases an invuln by 1. May not claim an additional attack for a second weapon in close combat, right? So get extra save benefits. That's kind of similar to what isn't that similar to what it was last edition, I think?
Yeah, it's pretty much identical to what it was last edition, which is, just +1 to your invul, or you get a base 5 up if you just take it. So, if you've got a Cataphracti, you're at a 3 up. If you got Tartaros, you're at a 4 up. And if you've got a Refractor Field, you're at a 4 up.
And then you can give a single Praetor the Mantle of the Elder Drake for 35 points, which gives them Battle Hardened 1.
Yeah, which when I flipped through this the first time, I got really off. Because I saw it and I was looking for, immune to instant death. And it said that I was battle hardened instead. And I had no idea what that meant. So I just got mad thinking they changed something dumb. And really what it is it just means that I have, I pretty much have instant death, but like really, really, really big things can kill me. So it functions mostly the way that it used to, with the caveat that now like some big stuff can instant kill me, which I'm okay with. It kind of makes sense.
Sure. So oh, good.
I was gonna say flamers for all different sizes of the family, like one for the little
Mama
bitties,
bear, daddy bear, baby bear. That's right.
Yep.
And the giant bear.
And the giant bear.
Yeah, and that's one thing I haven't got yet. And with the new, I may have to get me a couple of like a Demos pattern with the Flame Storm cannon on it, which I guess technically is now called a Dragon's Breath cannon. Just because I think that could be a lot of fun, like rolling up a troop squad of Predators with Torrent Strength 7 Flamers. If nothing else, it'll look really cool. So we'll see.
Cool. So then we move on to units. So do we start with the big guy himself first, or we save him for last?
The baddest man in all the land.
Hulk smash time.
He now has a Mastercrafted weapon, right?
I can't believe, I'll be real honest, like I can't believe that we made it through how many errata and facts and rewrites and book releases that we went through. And like, I can feel like my blood pressure going up. Because it's like,
I did not mean for that to happen, because you should be happy now it finally does.
I am. I mean, it still irritates me because it's like, if he goes, if Vulcan takes a dump, it is like technically and legally mastercrafted because he is the master crafter that crafted the dump, right? So like everything he does, it's not like he chooses, oh, I'm going to mastercraft this one and not this one. And ignore the fact that Dawnbreaker was intentionally meant as a, gift to the War Master for becoming War Master. And so he's making it 4-horse. So let's ignore the fact that he would probably put, anyway, yes, it has mastercrafted, which is extremely awesome. Vulcan, without going through just absolutely everything, he's just a bad dude. Like he just goes in, he's tough. He's hard to kill. He hits like a freight train. And everything that he touches dies, and things that touch him don't kill him. So the one thing that they did change on him from the last edition he had a really weird rule that was if things that were flamer, melta, volkite plasma, anything that's hot that goes burning time, it halved its strength when it was shooting at him. But the problem is that if he was inside of a unit, in my brain, I don't think there's a way you could have pulled that off, because you can't say, oh, well, the whole unit now gets this weird rule where I'm shooting at 10 fire drakes with Vulcan, and now you have to have the strength of everything because of his armor, right? So it was one of those, like, as soon as he would get out of a vehicle with the fire drakes, you almost broke him off intentionally to try to make him more survivable.
Right.
What they do now is he may reroll any failed armor saves for flame or Volkite weapons. So they kind of changed it away to make it make a little more sense. But outside of that, he's just, I mean, he's toughness 7, which is, 1 higher than most of the Primarchs. He's swinging at strength 10 AP 1 with armor bane, instant death. He's got 6 attacks. He's got a 2+3+. He's a Primarch with all the rules that come with being a Primarch. He's just the definition of a beat stick, and I think that's what I like about, and maybe it's my personality too. I mean, I'm not a duplicitous guy. I'm not let's have all these, interesting, twist my mustache. I'm a very straight up guy. Like, I'm going to put my models down and I'm going to charge them at you. And then you just if you can stop me, then you win. If you can't stop me, then you lose. And Vulcan is very much kind of that flavor of, I'm a big dude with a hammer and I want to put my hammer into other things. And if you keep me from being able to do that, you win. And if I'm able to put my hammer inside you, you lose. And that's what Vulcan does. And that's what I love about him.
I have to say, one of the things that we have talked about, right, is, and Jacob likes to key on, especially, is the strength of Primarchs versus Contemptors and that sort of thing. And one of the interesting things is his pistol here, right? This pistol is almost built to be a Contemptor killer, right? 18 inches.
It does work. Yeah, strength 7 AP2 with burst D6. So what that is if it inflicts a hit, then instead of 1 hit, it inflicts a number of hits equal to the number in brackets included in part of the rule. So each hit is D6 hits, which is awesome.
It's also got lance too, but I guess that would only really,
That's
vehicle.
Anything's armor 12 if it's higher than that. So you're always 5s and 6s.
Which is funny because I remember, like, in the previous edition, I shot his pistol, the Furnace's Heart, 1 time. And I remember I only shot it 1 time because I made the statement in the game, I have never shot his pistol. And I actually just shot it for the sake of shooting it to say I had done it. I foresee that changing with the Furnace's Heart rules now, because that burst, like, that's just, I mean, that's awesome. Strength 7 AP2, D6 shots. I mean, even if, let's say you've got Terminators charging into you, let's say you got any kind of thing running around, I mean, you can do some work on some guys. I like it.
For sure. Cool. So then we move on to Pyroclast. So we've already talked a little bit about Pyroclast.
Yeah, and Pyroclasts have gotten so much better. Like, so Pyroclasts, if we go back, Pyroclasts are one of the first models that I ever saw for Horus Heresy. And honestly, they were one of the reasons that I got into Horus Heresy, because I saw them and I was like, okay, those models, like, I have to have them. I don't know. I don't care. I need Pyroclasts. And so I built me a squad of Pyroclasts, and I run them in every army of Salamanders pretty much that I ever play. And they are, and it's not that they're bad. It's just that they cost way too many points for what they do. And their issues before, basically, I feel like when they did Pyroclast now, they really looked at everything that sucked and they went, hey, let's just make that not suck anymore. So what sucked about Pyroclast before? They were really expensive. Well, now they're, if I remember right, I think they're cheaper. And if they're not cheaper, they've added so many benefits that they are cheaper.
They're 175 for 5,
Yep.
and 30 for adding up to make it 10. So.
Yeah, I'd have to look back at the Black Book and see what they used to cost. I don't remember off the top of my head, but even if they're identical, 2 wounds, instantly better. You go from 1 attack to 2 attacks, instantly better. And that was always the problem with Pyroclast, is they were expensive. They had 1 wound, they had 1 attack. And so you got out at short range with these flamers, and you shot your flamers once, and then you just got absolutely eat up.
So I got the old book. The Pyroclasts were 160 and 25 for each additional, up to 5 more. So they're a little cheaper.
Yeah, but and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I would pay 10 points a model if you gave me +1 attack, +1 wound every day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, like, they gained a significant amount of more gear and rules.
Yeah.
Compared to the old one.
Was the flame projector always that it was either A flamer or a melta weapon?
Yes, but here's the difference. The old Melta was a 6-inch strength 6 Melta, which means you can't get within 3 inches of a model. And then when you do get within 3 inches of a model, you're shooting strength 6 Melta. Who gives a about a strength 6 Melta? Nobody. So what you ended up doing was either use the flamer or you shot strength 6 AP1 5 shots at, or 10 shots if you had a full squad at Terminators. And that's really all you ever did with them, because you, by the time, like you just, so now they gave them real strength 8 AP1 12-inch Meltas, which is awesome. So for anybody that doesn't know about the power class flame protector, it's essentially like an acetylene torch. You sit there and you can either turn the knob and make it a flamer strength 6 AP4, or you can crank that sucker down and you are ready to just start cutting, and your strength 8 AP1 12-inch Melta. One cool part they got too is they got It Will Not Die 5+. So they got 2 wounds, 2 attacks. It Will Not Die 5+. You get actual Meltas instead of strength 6 Meltas. And then you also get, which they had before, is a 5+ invul save against Flame, Plasma, Melta, and Volkite. So they kind of get a pseudo 5+ save on top of their It Will Not Die, on top of their 2+ armor with their 2 wounds and their 2 attacks. So to me, they're a way better choice now. And I will be my current list. I've got 2 squads of 8 that I'm going to be running in Land Raider Proteuses.
I was just going to say that's another thing that's interesting, is that not only can you give them a Rhino, but you can give them a Land Raider Proteus as a dedicated transport, so you don't have to use up that full sword slot. So yeah,
and they start at 5, which I like, because that means that you can kind of and that's one thing we didn't talk about with the support squad. So you get a little bit of if you take Covenant of Fire, you're not stuck at a 10-man squad. So, which sometimes can be cumbersome, points wise. So if you need to shave some points somewhere, you can knock a guy off. You can run 9-man support squads. You can run 9-man power class squads. So you can kind of build your list. And if you're 15 points over, you can go, okay, I'm going to drop 1 guy instead of going, all right, I guess I'm going to take my Mastercrafted off here, take a Hammer off here, take an Artificer armor here, because you're stuck with 10-man attack squads and 10-man, assault squad, etc. So you get a little bit more flexibility too, which I like.
Yeah, my initial list for Blood Angels started with 2 20-man attack squads and Spartans, and I've maneuvered those down to where probably most of the time they'll be running about 15 each. So it's nice to build around that maximum and then be able to shave and tweak and adjust. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, that seems like a real solid unit. And like you say, with the Rite of War, they're coming in their line, compulsory troops. That's can't ask for much more, I don't think. So all right.
Well, you can, and they're on the next page.
Fire Drakes were always really good. So if Fire Drake Terminators, so Cataphracti Terminators, normal power weapon combi bolter, so special rules separate from anyone else. Forgecraft of Nocturne, It Will Not Die 5+ in favor of Vulcan. They get a Proteus. If they're no more than 5 models, they get a Spartan as a choice of any size. Let's see. You can obviously take up to unit size 10. You can exchange their power weapons for Thunderhammer's Power Fist, Chains Fist. You can change their Combi Bolter for Combi Flamer, Combi Melta. Very thematic and not surprising. They can exchange Combi Bolters for Dragonstorm Shields for 5 instead of whatever the default 10 was. One can get a Dragon's Breath Heavy Flamer, and then Favorite of Vulcan is the rule that lets them be Command Squad Retinue with all of the benefits of that. And then Forgecraft of Nocturne may reroll all failed hit rolls of 1 made for weapons of the melee type. So you're built in chaplain all the time, right? That's not even on charging or anything. So and they're movement 6 only, but their weapon skill 5, right? So they get that weapon skill 5, which the new breakpoints is huge. 2 wounds, attacks 2, 3, leadership 9, right? So yeah, they're just that's what a Legion Terminator squad should be, right?
They are the king. They are. And honestly, when I first saw the rules for all the new Terminators where everybody was getting 2 wounds, I honestly thought that that might hurt fire drakes just because it brings everybody else kind of back in line with them. So it's not so much like they got worse, but they kind of got brought back closer to the mean, or whatever term you want to use. But I think that what they gave them, I mean, it's it's so stupid. Like I love it so much because I mean, you're talking they're stubborn, so that's big. It will not die 5+, 2 wound model with a 2+, 3+. That's huge. They still carry in that weapon skill 5. And this Forge Craft's a nocturne where you're basically getting, it's like master crafted on crack, rerolling all your ones. You don't have to take a chaplain, which I used to take all the time with it. And now you don't have to do that. So I've actually swapped from taking a chaplain. I'm building up a Primus Medicae to go with them to give them that, 2+, 3+ with a 5+, feel no pain, and the 5+, it will not die. I love fire drakes so much because fire drakes are like the great equalizer. You take them and Vulcan and you charge into any Primarch with any boyfriend squad that exists, and you've got a pretty good chance of coming out the other side. And a lot of it is because the fire drakes were so strong. What I would find in Heresy 1.0 was I would, when I'd have Primarch duels, it was the Primarch and the Primarch would just kind of butt heads, and Vulcan stuff enough to where he just stays there. And my special terminators were better than their special terminators, and they would just and so that like fire drakes they changed the game for me, that's just because they're so tough. And honestly, I'm so glad, and we haven't really talked about it because it's not a Salamanders rule, but I think it's Salamanders enough to where it deserves being talked about. Thunderhammer's got so much better, and hitting things with hammers is so much fun, which is also a reason that I play Salamanders, is because hammers are awesome. So, and luckily I had converted, I think, 2 chain fists out of my fire drakes, and I ran the rest hammers because I liked them and because I liked concussive, because when you're going into a fight with a Primarch, concussive was huge when you can bring, knock somebody down to initiative 1. But now with that brutal on those Thunderhammers, these guys are just they're gonna murder dreadnoughts. They're gonna murder. I mean, anything they go into where you're doing brutal with strength 8 Thunderhammers, and you're rerolling 1s and you're hitting on 3s, which means the only thing that if you roll 2s, you're screwed. But outside of that, and they just have staying power. It's hard to get through a 2-up, 3-up. It's hard to get through both wounds. I love fire drakes. I very rarely don't take them. They're just awesome. They're the perfect definition of what Salamanders ought to be and what I like to play, which is very straightforward. I got a guy with a shield and a hammer, and he wants to put his hammer in. Smash. That's it. It's just smash. It's just bop, 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 bop. It's Mario with the hammer on Donkey Kong. That's what I want to do, and that's what Salamanders do, and that's what fire drakes do exceptionally well.
I never put this together, but they're kind of like the dwarves of Heresy. If you play D&D, you play dwarf, don't you?
I alternate. So I play a dwarf or I play a human, either one. But typically, yeah, it's one or the other, and that kind of has always appealed to me. And honestly, a dwarf, yeah, I guess that plays with both my Space Wolves and my Salamanders. It's kind of like a perfect split of you've got the runic and the hammer time and the artisanship and the forgemanship and all that fun stuff.
And I think that unless my pages are sticking together, there's no special characters in the main rule book right now. I don't know. There's some stuff in the
legendary stuff.
And when we're doing the deep dives, we talked about that last episode. We haven't really jumped into those yet. But
I do have a question about the Cassian Draco. How do you feel about that getting moved to Legends?
Honestly, like I think Cassian Dracos was a super fun choice. I think he's a super neat, like the model for him, which is the Bray Arthash Mantle model, is a super awesome kit. I haven't actually looked at him in the Legends. I need to go check that out and see what's changed. I don't know that it bothers me one way or another because he's not somebody that I normally built a list around. But I don't know. Like I'll be real honest. I'm not educated enough on kind of the legend side of the house to know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that he's there. But I didn't play with him enough to where it bothers me that he's not here.
If it's in the PDF, odds are it's probably bad.
Well, it's probably either really bad or really good because
I have it right here. Hold on.
Did you take the Salamanders to Music City Heresy or no?
Yeah, so I took what I normally do, and I've actually done it for the last couple of Adepticons and Music City Heresy, is for small games I play my Space Wolves, and for big games I play my Salamanders. Just because I didn't have all my vehicles, my transports done for my Space Wolves, so I normally play them at Centurion because they're really good at Centurion and ZM, and I like playing them that way. And then the Salamanders, like I said, I've been building them since I got into Heresy, so it's a lot easier for me. But yeah, I played them in the second day at Music City Heresy.
So I've got the stuff for Cassian Dracos Reborn if y'all want it.
Hit it.
It's
Lay it on me, baby.
310 points. Movement 6, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, strength 6, toughness 6, wounds 5, initiative 4, assault 4, leadership 10, 2+ save, 2 Gravis power fists with built-in Dragon's Breath heavy flamers. Additional close combat attacks are already included in the profile. Legion Astartes, Salamanders, Avatar Sacred Flames, Voice of the Machine, and Loyalist. Dedicated transport, you may take a Dread drop pod. So Avatar Sacred Flames, as long as no HQ other than Xiphus Jor or Narik Dragor, I can't even say it, are included in the same detachment. Cassian Dragos Reborn may be selected as the Army's Warlord. If selected as the Army's Warlord, Dragos must take the Bloody-Handed Warlord trait. Voice of the Machine has Cyberthurgic Arcania, Artificica Mechania, and it says C in the Library Mechanicum. And then Pheromatic Deflector, 5+ invulnerable with any model with a Pheromatic Deflector and wounds character. So unsaved wound with the instant death rule is not immediately removed as a casualty. Instead, loses 3 wounds instead, 1 for each unsaved wound with the instant death rule inflicted on it. In addition, when the model with an automatic deflector loses last wound or hull point before it is removed as casualty, replace it with a wreck, and then it goes D6 suffer with any enemies within D6 suffer an automatic hit at strength 6 AP not.
He's got worse toughness. He's got worse movement.
Yep.
He's a crap ton of points. He's got worse weapons.
He's a lot of points.
And he doesn't give you anything. Like, what is he? I mean, he doesn't. I mean, if I took a Contemptor Dreadnought and I gave that Contemptor Dreadnought Gravis Power Fists and Heavy Flamers,
The only thing he gives you is he's kind of counts as a Forge Lord, so he can take some of the Castellax guys. But I mean, everything that people loved him for before, which is being a tanky beat stick, he don't do so well.
No,
There's
he lost a
also
lot.
you've got Chaplain Rythan and then Xiphus Jor. That's it. Other Salamander.
All right, so I guess the only other question I have, and this is almost a personal question for me, but it applies to everybody. So I've skipped and jumped through the various heresy books, and I'm probably, I don't know, halfway to Siege of Terra, maybe a little bit more than that. And there's some I'm just not going to read whatsoever. But other than a couple of short stories, I haven't, like the one where the Ultramarine is with the Salamanders after Calth, and a couple of other ones. I haven't read a ton of the novels that have Salamanders in them. So if you're gonna jump in and recommend, a novel or a couple of novels that are must reads to get into Salamanders, what are we looking at?
So to me, it's the whole Unremembered Empire storyline. Vulcan Lives, Unremembered Empire. I have to go look at the exact list and see what all is involved. But the Salamanders are a huge part of that, and they're a huge part of. I think that's what I like about Salamanders. They're there from the very beginning, right? They're there at Isfahan, so you get pictures and story. They're in a lot of the short stories. But I think Vulcan Lives, Unremembered Empire, I'd have to go back and look and see what all the things are tied to that. But that's one of my favorite storylines in the Black books, or in the Black Library books, because I think it's interesting. But they definitely play a huge part. Deathfire, there's a couple others. They'll come to me here in just a little bit, but that's kind of where I would start.
Cool. I'm actually jumping in and started Fear to Tread last week, so I hadn't read or listened to, because I'm listening to most of them, but the much of the Blood Angel stuff, and I figured since I'm starting a Blood Angel army, might as well read more than just the lore that comes in the rule book. So
there's actually a short story in the I forget which compilation it is, but it's the one that's all about the Shadrach Medusan, and while they're kind of figuring out how they're going to fight what after Isfahan. But there's a storyline of the Salamanders loading up in these ancient suits, and it's the old school like Rogue Trader Terminators with like the heavy weapons on their backs, and coming in, and the whole story is they have like 120 of these suits, and they're relics from an ancient past, and they put them on and they just drop in and just start murdering. I think it's Sons of Horses. It's a pretty cool little story, but they're littered all through everywhere, but they are a very big part of the entire Imperium Secundus storyline, which is one of my favorite sections of the Heresy. So I really enjoyed kind of the way they play in that and the way they're represented in that. And honestly, another one I would do, and this is even if you're not into 40K anymore, the Tome of Fire series in the 40K is actually a really good read as well. I think there's 4 books in that series, but it really goes in depth into kind of the Salamanders living on Nocturne, how they interact with people. It's told from the surface of Nocturne, most of the story. So it's actually a really good read as well, and I would suggest that.
Okay. Oh, Nick Kime.
Yeah, Nick Kime's kind of the Salamander guy, and he does a really good job with them. And it's a really good. I read that as I was getting into my Salamanders because there wasn't a whole lot of stuff out at that point in time in the Black Library books on them, but it's a really good storyline.
Cool. So what's anyone else got any questions? Anything we haven't covered? No.
I think one thing I would say too, Dan, is looking at the black books. If you've got them or if you can find them, reading through the exemplary battles. These Liber Astartes books are okay. I mean, it's very much a Space Marine chapter blurb from a codex and 40K kind of version of the story. Finding the black books, reading about, like, one of my favorite things is the story of the Tempest Galleries. That's one of the exemplary battles. There's some really good stuff in the black books that really breaks down the Salamanders as well.
Very cool. All right. Well, I would say thank you very much for coming on and talking through this. I appreciate it a ton. Always fun.
Thank you, Mr. McGillicuddy.
Hey, we're doing our part.
Thank you very much, Jake and War Eagle.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of our shorter episodes, but there's always important to remember the legions that just because you don't play them doesn't mean they're not very special to somebody else. That's why we had to make sure to get Jake on. If it's not Ultramarines, I don't know that much about it, so I wanted to make sure to expand on that. In the meantime, I'm John. I've been joined by
Dan with a silent J.
Jamie.
Jake with a silent D.
And always remember, be accountable to your buddy and your hobby. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.